A lot goes on when it comes to Power Rangers. One major aspect is the narrator. If there's going to be a superhero show, obviously there needs to be a story for the show to tell. Super Sentai, where Power Rangers comes from, it's a superhero story with a fabricated logic that it works upon. And Power Rangers uses as much of the logic needed and imply its own elements. And that's what makes it different in particular from many other superhero shows. With Super Sentai, what started simply as a television series with one main plotline evolves into a franchise. They started making more series of similar teams of heroes doing similar things. And then the studio merges all of them into one continuity. And all following installments were established part of that universe ever since. Power Rangers started much later and had a plot going for it. There were no changes, but that plot was continued regardless. And finally, there was an incentive to put a bookend on it. But after that, new adaptations with different stories. Pretty much the same exact thing Super Sentai is doing. What's more, there's very, 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 very little connection with the events of the first several years of the show. Telling the right story in Power Rangers is something that I feel uncertain of. First, it's just one story for a few seasons. Then, for the next few seasons, it's like the story's been changed. At the end of it, something to put an end to the overall conflict once and for all, but something difficult to take in. And after that, new tales even though it's in the same universe. And some of which have a sense that simply can't fit next to everything else. First of all, if the principal plot is complete, why are we getting more follows up? There must be a reason we are getting more and more teams. I get that there are different teams fighting off different enemies. I don't know how many times I've actually reiterated that. It's just that throughout the years of the franchise, it's all we ever had to concentrate on. But there's gotta be something more than that. Is there going to be an ultimate fight for the fate of Earth or the whole universe? Is it so intense that it's too big for even a couple of teams? Must it take a couple of hundreds of Rangers? And about each of the tales, how can you fit all of it into one continuation? If you're not careful, some of the logic in one series can't coincide with the rest. If more seasons is the way you're expanding the universe, don't use too much imagination. Research and creativity contributes on making the show entertaining, but it shouldn't be by means of applying something to explain that doesn't work alongside something else to explain that worked perfectly for already existing seasons. Think about what happened at the end of Dino Charge. And sometime later, they said it's all in the multiverse? How is that clarification supposed to fix it? There should have been a more reasonable way to discuss the Energems. An RPM not on the same world as Jungle Fury? Well, perhaps they shouldn't have gone with an apocalyptic setting due to political problems. point is, for everything to be appropriately canon, the details of how things work in the universe of Power Rangers need to be handled with good thought. Sure, it involves a whole lot of fiction, but do just enough for it to make sense. Do these different teams exist for a reason other than the specific enemies they need to fend off? Is Zordon responsible for most of the teams coming to be, even though he seemingly sacrificed when the Rangers were becoming cornered? Are any of the teams inspired from any other existing teams? And if that energetic wave was what it took to erase the evil in the universe in that episode, why are there still more enemies out there? Why were only the current ones affected? Is it because the enemies who show up later were not major threats yet? And when they do become such, what would it take to deal with them? What if it does not have to be a team of Power Rangers? And if it does have to be a team of Power Rangers, which team should it be? Could it be any one of the existing teams, or does it have to be a new team? Not only that, but it's like triggering that wave was all that it took to defeat the villains instead of wasting all that time recruiting humans and turning them into heroes. Now, that is not me. I read someone's comment on YouTube saying something like this. But if that's the case, it must have taken the right elements to be in Zordon's tooth for it to happen. I wouldn't call it thoughtless writing, but I can't get it over my head. Zordon is like the most important character of the entire show, and for the way he was written off, the studio must have been getting exhausted and running out of ideas to continue the main plot. I'm just saying. If the show is going to show and tell a narration, there needs to be a consideration of whether it is ongoing or it is story after story, but the stories are within one story. And if the production company behind Power Rangers wants to change stories, it should be somehow progressive. Tell one story, you need only a few seasons at best for that. Tell a lot of stories for as many seasons, that's okay, but as long as the audience is still reminded that it's all in the same universe. But if there's going to be a long-running series that persists this many years, you should consider which events are possible to happen. And that is one trait that ensures that the quality of the show is overall consistent. If I was the one in charge of Power Rangers, that's what I would do. And that's what I'm definitely considering once I start working on my own fandom. And now I turn this over to you. Are you any bothered of the story direction in Power Rangers being consistent? Is there anything you saw on the show that you don't like? What kind of stories do you like hearing in the series? Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.